Now it's time for the Anchormen podcast with Matt Gates and Pearson Sharp.
Welcome back to the Anchormen Show. I'm Matt Gates. Great to have you with us, and I am joined, as always, by my favorite everyman and a terrific investigative journalist here at One America News, Pearson Sharp, host of The Sharp Report. We're going to get to some of Pearson's outstanding journalism in the show, talk about it. But we've got a great guest today, a guy who's been a friend of mine for a long time. He is the field rep for the Panhandle of Florida for Turning Point USA, a fellow Florida State Seminole alumnus, Owen Girard. Owen, thanks so much for joining Pearson and I on the program. Really want to get into a lot of the news we're seeing, how you react to it as a Gen Z activist, what you're hearing from folks as this movement is rolling into these midterm elections, and you're out talking to activists and to voters. But first, maybe just give our audience a little background into how you got interested in politics and came to a leadership role in Turning Point and really built out a great organization at FSU.
Yeah, well, thank you, Matt, so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. So I really got into politics probably during COVID, but I didn't start out on the right wing. I started out on the left. That's the way my generation was really headed throughout a lot of this 21st century for most of it up until recently. So I remember, as a 8th grader, 9th grader, being out there on the state capitol steps in Florida, advocating for the Green New Deal and climate activism and things like that. I was a big Bernie bro going into 2020. But, as time went on, I really started to realize that I wanted to have purpose in life, right? Like so many people around me were going through the issues that the average leftist has to deal with, right? Depression, anxiety, stress, the feeling that life is completely worthless and pointless because, whatever. So I ended up finding Christ, and I was able to kind of ground myself in some good morals. And then from there, I was able to kind of open up to right-wing views, conservative views, it kind of all went from there. So I've always been passionate about politics, but I really had a kind of a developmental arc throughout high school and stuff to the point where I got into college, where I said, I turned 18 years old, and a couple days after I turned 18, I reached out to Turning Point USA and I said, what can I do to get involved? And they said, start a chapter. So I started a chapter at Tallahassee Community College, now Tallahassee State College. Did that for a year, transferred over to Florida State, and where I ran that chapter for 2 years. We had a ton of success. Obviously, we hosted you, Matt. That was an awesome event. And then we hosted Charlie back in February of last year, which was huge. We got thousands of students to turn out for that in our Landis Green, and it was awesome. I've always, outside of Turning Point, been involved. I've been involved. I've worked in our state government, in the state capitol. I've worked in conservative media and on a lot of campaigns, things like that. So very passionate about the Panhandle, very passionate about our communities here, and obviously these conservative values we're fighting for. So here I am as a FSU grad working for Turning Point, and proud to keep fighting every day.
We are so glad to have you on our team, and you'll probably be a happier person having been rescued from the radical left. But there is this intersection about how when people get involved with their faith organizations, with their churches, with their synagogues, they do get closer to the political right often. And then
funny how that works.
Yeah, but it's also interesting that the opposite is true, right? That getting involved with more conservatives leads people who may be conservative but secular to see the way faith enriches people's life. And
they go hand in hand.
Yeah, and I wonder which feeds which more. And maybe Owen, you could talk about how they worked in concert to build you as a young man.
I think faith is the centerpiece of it. There was a brief period of time where I was like, I was beginning RCIA, converting to Catholicism. And I'm like, I can be a socialist and a Catholic. And then it didn't really end up working out too well. Started consuming some conservative content. I mean, really, I think the faith aspect is really what opened my heart up, right? Because for the longest time, I was closed off to conservative perspectives, right? I just had this brick wall in front of me, and I said, I'm not going to give them the time of day. I'm not going to care about their opinions. But it was the softening, it was Christ, softening my heart that I was able to really open up and at least understand why conservatives believe what they believe. And I said, actually, some of these ideas are not that bad. And then I started adopting them, obviously, because I'm like, well, look how interconnected this is with this beautiful faith that I'm exploring and beginning this journey in. And especially with issues like the pro-life issue and things like that, it really inspired me to be like, oh my gosh, this faith component is crucial. And that's, I think, the issue with the left, right? I mean, they advocate for all of these issues that they care deeply about, but they couldn't actually tell you why they matter, right? I mean, why is it so gloriously important that you need to be transing, kids, right? I mean, it's just like why? What's the point? What's even the point of? Yeah, they don't understand morality. They don't have a sense of objective morality, right? And so they're completely lost and confused. And, I pray for a lot of my friends every day who kind of got derailed with that. And, when I opened up to them about exploring Christianity and conservative beliefs, they completely shut me away. So I pray for them every day because it's so important that, we bring these people to Christ first and foremost,
Amen.
And then obviously open them up to their
the dark hates the light. The dark hates the light. Your story is honestly very inspiring, and I'm so glad that you came over to our side. But I want to know, in your experience, is this a typical transition for people in your age group, in your demographic? Are the younger generation, do you think that they're moving in this direction, or are you an outlier?
No, absolutely. This is a massive movement, right? I mean, we saw the Gen Z turn out in record numbers for President Trump, right, in 2024. And that is because we actually believe in conservative values, and many of those conservative beliefs are grounded in our faith. We've seen amazing spiritual Christian revivals happening all across the country on college campuses. And it's truly, truly beautiful to see. And then I have the blessing of seeing it firsthand on all these college campuses, right? Obviously, like Matt said, I cover the Florida Panhandle, but I also cover the southern half of Alabama and Southwest Georgia. So a lot of great colleges.
The best territory on earth, okay?
It
if I can be a little partisan for that Bible Belt region, that is awesome. That is such a cool I'm so glad that we're building leaders that get to do that kind of work. How do you see this intersection of faith and politics, Pearson?
Faith and politics? I think it's absolutely critical going forward that we have this foundation to build off of. Because I think if you have beliefs and politics divorced of this foundational faith, they'll just drift apart. And that's why the left is falling apart. They don't have that. They have Satanism, frankly. What they're doing is evil. They're literally sacrificing babies. That's what happens when you divorce this faith from your ideology. And God is what gives us our strength, and God is what built this country, and we need to go back to God to save this country. There's no other way to do it. You can never have a successful, prosperous, thriving country without God. It's not possible. Our leaders can't do it because our leaders are humans. They're flawed. They're going to create corruption. And so we've got to go back to God if we want to save our country. So I think it's outstanding what you're doing, and it's really given me a lot of hope to hear you talk about this.
Clip that. But Owen, I want to follow up on Pearson's question to you about where the tides are turning on this, because you and I know each other well. We've gone to a lot of these activism events, and after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, there was so much interest and so much enthusiasm in the infrastructure that he had built for the conservative movement, and we saw all these requests to be involved and be a part of it. Bring us inside how you all are building a catchment apparatus for that enthusiasm, so that people's interest or their desire to help is actually converted into something that can be meaningful and useful to the cause.
Yeah, well, I mean, the momentum has been huge, right? I remember right in the aftermath of the tragic assassination, I mean, I was just absolutely flooded with students reaching out, saying, I want to start chapters, I want to join chapters, literally thousands just in my territory. And obviously, so that happened all across the country. I mean, I had 7 chapters at the point, and then the assassination happened, and now I'm at 27, right? Just in this territory. I mean, everything, obviously, from Florida State and Auburn all the way down to super small community colleges, and I'm getting to those technical colleges soon. I know they're all good and conservative, and they love our values, and and it's just awesome to see it. And something I really emphasize with the students is, this is amazing, this is huge what we're doing on these college campuses, but let's translate this out into the community. Let's make sure we're making an impact even beyond the campus. And it's really been awesome to see so many of these young student leaders getting involved in their local GOPs, getting involved in other conservative groups, and supporting grassroots conservative candidates that truly advocate for the issues that Charlie fought for, and that Turning Point continues to fight for. And it's just been awesome to see that. And so that's something I always emphasize with them, because when they graduate college, if they want to still be involved in politics, that's where it's going to be at, right? It's going to be in the campaigns. It's going to be in your local conservative groups. It's going to be in your churches. It's going to be in your communities that you work in, that you raise a family in. And that's something that I personally really emphasize with a lot of my student leaders. And it's just been awesome to see them really capitalize on that, and really make a ton of progress for Gen Z conservative activism in general, even beyond these campuses.
Well, hear me now. Before Charlie's assassination and after Charlie's assassination, there has been no organization, no political party, no super PAC, no anything that has done more to make this a winning, durable, successful movement than Turning Point. And all this crap online I see that attacks the outstanding people who make this happen is complete nonsense to me. I am 1,000% on the team of Erica Kirk, Andrew Colvett, Tyler Bauer, Lauren Tonsich. These people are personal heroes of mine because they have done what I think many, frankly, in my generation failed to do. The millennials wanted to post on social media about their beliefs and activism, but really the grunt work, the stuff that got us Pennsylvania, flipped Georgia, flipped Arizona, that was the stuff Turning Point was doing. Elon was writing a lot of checks. A lot of patriotic people were writing checks, but the actual labor was being done by the patriots at Turning Point. They're the very people that Owen Girard is recruiting right now. He is filling the billets, and he is making it happen for us. And the organization has my utmost respect. So I want to get to some of what's going on in the news and see how that is animating a lot of this activism and what's ahead of us. And, Pearson, you pulled this great article for us. Drivers fume over Dem-led push that could see them taxed every mile, citizens being treated like ATMs. Tell us what's going on in this story.
Well, California has found another way to tax people. First, they demanded that we all drive electric vehicles, of course, because we've got to save the environment. And so now that a lot of people are driving electric vehicles, they're not making as much money off the gas tax, despite the fact that they raise the gas tax almost every year. And I don't know how these voters pass this stuff. I do not understand it. Yeah, tax me more, please.
By the way,
who's
who
doing
do you
this?
think you're taxing?
Who's doing this?
The gas tax is a regressive tax on working class people.
Exactly.
Okay? Like, you know what rich people get to do? Live close to work from home. You know what middle class have to people? They have to drive a long way. A lot of those folks on Interstate 10 that are living off those exits that you see, Owen, they are the backbone of this country. We love them to death, and they get hammered by these gas taxes. So how in the world is that a progressive viewpoint?
Well, it's not. It's going to hurt all of these people. I drive a 2006 SUV. I get about 11 miles to the gallon, and I got to drive 17 miles each way. I spend like $200
there's
bucks
military
a week.
Equipment that gets better miles per the gallon.
There really is. Yeah, I should just switch to a Humvee. But anyway, so there's two elements of this. They want to tax you for every mile you drive, which would probably be about the number is saying like $4,000 for a married couple with 2 kids, $4,000 a year. And there's the privacy aspect of them knowing everywhere that you go.
Yeah, bro, forget taxing me every mile. I don't even want them to know how many miles I drive. I don't think it's any of their business.
It's invasion of privacy.
But all the polling, Owen, says that these affordability issues are going to be really central to the midterms. How people are feeling about the family budget, what the end of the month looks like before the paycheck. What are you hearing about affordability as a driving factor for swing voters and maybe even like the thing that gets people involved because they don't want to see these per mile taxes?
Well, I'll just say personally, Matt, I just got off a 4-hour drive from Mobile right now. So I was driving all across I-10 right before we jumped on here. So I definitely feel that and understand what you're talking about. And, a lot of college students too, right? I mean, a lot of these awesome, community colleges and smaller universities here in this territory have commuter students, right? And, they're trying to get their education. They're trying to, live their life and they want to be able to afford, eventually someday a home and a family and all this other stuff. And like you were saying, affordability, it's a huge issue. It's always a big issue in the election time. But, it's so important that the incumbent party, and especially in this case, the Republicans, acknowledge the pain and the struggles that working class people are facing, right? Especially the ones in our deep red conservative communities here. And I think that's where the Democrats, that's where they messed up in 2024, right? Like they said, oh no, the economy's fine. Everything's great. You just don't see it. You just don't feel it, whatever. And then, of course, everybody came out in massive numbers to support Trump for that reason. And I fear that, certain people in the Republican Party are going to use similar messaging and saying, oh, okay, look at all these great things about the economy, which it is true. There has been a lot of awesome progress in the economy. But, the average person that doesn't really care about politics, they care about their pocketbook, right? They care about their wallet.
But that's why we have to put these policies on blast. You see, I think you're right. We cannot just we certainly need to point out the victories, but we can't just have a parade for the existing economy. We have to show the left.
I feel like we're being gaslit a little bit about how good the economy is.
Well, what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, sure, we've come a long way. There's no doubt about
4.2% growth in the final quarter of 2025?
I mean, that's incredible. But when I go to the grocery store, I'm not feeling 4.2% growth.
Well, you're feeling the growth in your prices. Man.
Yeah, and so
that has slowed. That pace has slowed.
Sure, but it hasn't gone back. And I completely understand that this is...
Have you ever tried to put a boat in reverse? Don't you realize the first thing you have to do is you have to stop going the wrong direction.
I get it.
And it takes a second to put the boat in reverse.
Let's get that message out, because I totally get that this is Biden's issue. He created this. He created this boat that's going this way, and Trump is trying to stop it.
Yes.
Totally understand. But in the meantime, we're all getting drugged by that boat while they're trying to stop it. And I don't think enough Republicans take that seriously. And I think they need to come out and make that a main issue instead of saying, oh, the economy's great, we're doing awesome.
But you also have to point out the alternative.
What we're really feeling.
Look, the reason midterms are hard for the party in power is because the other side has a boogeyman, right? It's a fair fight in a presidential election because both sides have to put up a candidate. And so if they wanted to say bad things about President Trump, we would show the world what it would look like under Biden or Harris. But now the boogeyman has to be these policies. It has to be the increases in the gas tax. It has to be the 50 tax increases that your moderate Democrat in Virginia is now pushing in the Commonwealth there. And I think that the combination of realism and empathy that Owen and you are talking about, aligned with searing attacks on the terrible Democrats, that's the elixir. And by the way, there was no better attack on what the Democrats are doing than the Sharp Report this week on One American News. We have a clip from some of Pearson's journalism. Take a listen. I'm so excited when we get our Merriweather Farms shipments in. You get a beautiful piece of ribeye. Look at that marbling. Now, I take it out of the package, let it get down to room temperature. All I've got on here is a little salt, a little pepper, and then a little avocado oil. And then I've had my pan preheating with a little oil.
Head to merriweatherfarms.com and enter promo code MattG for 15% off your first order.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker claimed ICE is turning America into Nazi Germany.
You shouldn't have to walk around with papers the way that they did in the early days of Nazi Germany. That is essentially the kind of country that we're becoming if you allow ICE to simply grab people after racial profiling.
Representative Pramila Jayapal, who wasn't born in America, called ICE officers deranged and warned that they will shoot you and kill you.
Whoever you are, you have to worry now that an ICE agent is going to come and shoot at you and kill you.
Yeah, if you attack them with your car. Ilhan Omar, who also wasn't born in America, called ICE vile and beyond cruel and vowed to make them pay.
We are going to make sure that these people pay for what they have done to us.
Jasmine Crockett, who just behaves like she wasn't born in America, called them slave patrols.
But as somebody who understands history, when I see ICE, I see slave patrols. But if you know the history of policing in this country, then you understand that they were born out of slave patrols.
And Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner, a George Soros-backed puppet, called ICE wannabe Nazis and threatened to hunt them down. He warned, "We will find you."
This is a small bunch of wannabe Nazis. If we have to hunt you down the way they hunted down Nazis for decades, we will find your identities, we will find you, we will achieve justice.
That sounds like a threat to me, Pam Bondi.
So, Owen Girard, how are voters going to react to the left-wing rhetoric that is increasingly encouraging violence and retribution against ICE?
Well, look, I mean, again, it goes back to the average voter, right? They're so sick and tired of this type of rhetoric. And, I mean, look, the Republican Party isn't innocent to this either. But I mean, specifically in this case, the Democrats do a really good job at using this violent rhetoric, especially when they're in the minority, right? They use this rhetoric and they say, you will literally die unless, we elect a Democrat majority in Congress. And that scares people, right? I mean, you think of like your average family, your average single mom who really doesn't care about voting or politics or anything. She just cares about putting food on the table. And then CNN is talking about how the Nazis are going to be hunting her down pretty soon, and her family or her neighbors or whatever. I mean, that's scary stuff. And it's disgusting, frankly. And it leads to the political violence that we don't like to see in this country. It leads to the things like the assassination of my boss and friend, Charlie Kirk. And, it's awful. It's absolutely awful. And I think we have an obligation and a duty, regardless of if we have the presidency, if we have Congress or not, as the conservative movement in this country to, yes, be firm, be very, fierce about our beliefs and our values and the dangers of the left, but do it in a way that is actually, first of all, digestible to the average voter, but also one that comes in saying, look, these are the horrors that could happen. This is what we can do. This is what we currently are doing. And this is how we're going to be improving in the future. And it's really that simple. You don't need to be calling the other side Nazis, fascists, or whatever. And it's sickening to see Democrats do that because it's cheap stuff and it scares people and it makes people violent. And especially on these college campuses, these students, right, on the left, they get scared.
Oh, they get emboldened. They get emboldened by it. Like when some college sophomore sees the DA, Larry Krasner, talking like that, they know.
Or the governor.
Yeah, they know they're not going to get prosecuted if they.
Or people from Congress. You have this whole left side showing this. There was a great graph that I saw today that showed from 1980. It showed how each political party has tended to move in their views over time. And for the Republicans, it was pretty much a straight line. And the conclusion was since 1980, Republicans haven't really shifted their views, the average Republican voter. And then it showed Democrats, and it was almost like a cliff, showing it dropping down. Unbelievable. This is like a Pew Research study. It's just insane. And the thing that bothers me, there's twofold. One, you were saying that Republicans need to be careful about their messaging and support these people, but Republicans right now are stabbing them in the back. They're holding them in for prosecution. They're bringing them in for questioning, basically, these ICE people. They're getting rid of Greg Bovino. Like, these are the people we need to be supporting. Turn 1,000 Greg Bovinos loose into our cities. Like, we need to clear house. And we have Democrats right now, the ones that we just saw in these clips, talking about how evil they are, but also vowing that they are going to dismantle ICE and that they are going to prosecute them and they will face justice.
Right.
And we have to believe them when they say that.
Preach. This is the number one thing that stood out to me when I watched your outstanding report. They mean it.
To believe them when they say that.
Preach. This is the number one thing that stood out to me when I watched your outstanding report. They mean it.
They mean business.
Larry Krasner means it when he says that they are going to try to throw these people in prison. And I think that there are countermeasures that we should start deploying now.
I mean, you think January 6th was bad? You're going to have federal agents.
They will treat this in a comparably unfair way.
And if you're a Border Patrol agent or you're another federal law enforcement agent and they get into power and they start prosecuting people, are you going to want to do your job?
That's the
your
whole
job
point.
is to protect people, and you're going to be standing there at the border watching these criminal illegals come over, and you're just going to be like, well, welcome to America.
Well, I mean, exactly. These are not insanely wealthy people. These are working class people. And if they think I'm going to get hung out to dry under some Democrat administration, that is what the purpose of these statements that we're getting from Democrat leaders. They're trying to shape behaviors while we have power to try to achieve their ends. That is what you are watching, and it's very real. And I think when they say things like that, there have to be immediate consequences. There has to be funding withheld. There have to be civil rights
But no one has a
investigations.
backbone to do that. I don't see any Republicans pushing back on it.
It certainly is more. Well, what we've heard from Republicans, Owen, is that there is a growing chorus within the Republican conference saying, you know, we just need to focus on the criminal illegal aliens, and we need to stop any enforcement against someone who is not a known criminal. If that were the policy of Republicans broadly, do you think it would deflate the base?
Yeah, absolutely. We came here we voted for mass deportations for a reason, right? And look, you can argue all day about, specific cases, and, there are absolutely tragedies that occur or unfortunate circumstances. But the reality is that this is what the American people voted for. They wanted to make sure that their streets were safe and that citizens were prioritized over illegal immigrants. And the very act of entering this country illegally, I mean, that's a serious crime. That's an issue. You're rejecting everything that it means to be a sovereign nation, right? And that is the problem. And so many people talk about this, but we have an immigrant class, unfortunately, in this world that thinks that they have a right to come to America, and that America is simply an economic zone that they can take advantage of. I mean, no, I know, Matt, you've talked about this a lot, and it's unfortunate, right? Because if I went to a place like Japan, right, they would never allow you to just jump over the border and exist there and take advantage of all the government benefits that their taxpayers pay. And if we want to be a serious nation, if we want to be a real country that puts our people first, then we need to be prioritizing the border. And again, that's a basic thing that we all voted for. And
those people have to be ignored. My colleagues in Congress who are the Republicans saying we need to scale back, those people need to be like shoved into the darkest recesses
and gotten out. My wife is an immigrant. She came here legally. Her mom came here legally. Her entire family, she's Lebanese, so that's a big family. Hundreds of people came here legally. My brother-in-law, his wife is Lebanese. She just got over here. They got married 5 years ago. She's been waiting 4 years to come over here. She's had legally. She's had to fly to Mexico, and he's had to drive into Mexico to see her because she couldn't get a visa, even a travel visa, to come to the United States. And she respected the law. And they've waited 4 miserable years for her to come here legally. Imagine being apart from your wife. By the way,
that's not even
4 years.
That's not even that long. There are people who've waited like 8, 10, 12. I want to ask you this question, Owen. Do you think a lot of the hysteria around the immigration enforcement is intended to be a distraction from the fraud stories that we've seen captivate the American public? Pearson and I had this discussion last week. We firmly believe that's the case, but I'd be interested in your perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, when you realize that there is millions in dollars in fraud happening in Minnesota and all across the country by illegal immigrants and by immigrant communities in general that are taking advantage of our welfare system and taking advantage of the American taxpayers, it's absolutely disgusting. And what do, right? As the Democrats, you try to distract from the issue, and then you talk about human rights abuses and atrocities or whatever that's happening. And, again, like things happen and it's unfortunate and terrible. And we can condemn bad behavior if it's found, if there's proof, right, that there was wrongful behavior by ICE agents or whatever. I mean, that hasn't been found. But, it's just it's insane that they're able to manipulate this message and influence millions of Americans, distracting them, like you said, from serious fraud abuses across this country.
I mean, the fraud story is, I think, the biggest opportunity to have bipartisan appeal because everybody is invested in the U.S. dollar, and right now the U.S. dollar is being abused. It is being diluted so much because America is going into debt to pay for these ghost daycare centers and ghost hospice services. Like, You really think holding the dollar is going to build wealth? I think that it's a way to see your future wasted. I'm betting my family's financial future on asset classes that stand the test of time, and Lear Capital has all the information ready for you to make those smart choices. It's a major goal of our program to show you how the golden age of America can be yours, but you've got to work with the right people. You don't want some internet company that was set up like 20 minutes ago by a hacker. This is why we've partnered with Lear Capital. They're the leader in precious metals investing. It's imperative you get educated and learn about alternative assets like gold and silver to protect and safeguard your hard-earned money. It is not too late to buy gold and silver. People who thought they were too late just a year ago are probably kicking themselves right now. I've spoken to Lear Capital. I've read their reports, their guidelines. It's great material, and it will show you what the experts are saying about the durable growth potential in precious metals. They've got folks ready to speak with you. Call 800-511-3700 or go online to learmat.com. They're waiting. They've got over 28 years of experience, and they're the only company that will give you a 24-hour risk-free purchase opportunity. Nobody else does that. You want to go to learmat.com today. So, Pearson,
I was going to say, that's a really good segue.
I tell you.
That was like about as good a segue as you
didn't even know.
I just came right in.
No, we were in the read, baby. All right, I want to continue our discussion around these midterm elections. And one thing we're real concerned about is the election integrity factor. Now, John Thune, the majority leader of the Senate, has gone out and said that there will be a vote on the SAVE Act to stop illegal aliens from voting, but he will not tie that to a must-pass bill. Pearson Sharp, your assessment of the leader's decision.
I mean, Trump came out and basically said the same thing. He said, he called it because there was Republicans, Paulina Luna said, we've got to pass the SAVE Act. We've got to get this in. And Trump came out and said, let's get the bill passed. Let's get the funding through. I'm asking you not to put your foot down on that issue.
But that may have presupposed that the SAVE Act was going to move on a reconciliation bill. And I know this is a bit in the weeds for like a podcast, but there is a way John Thune can move the SAVE Act without Democrat votes. He probably has to fire the Senate parliamentarian that was hired by like some Democrat of yesteryear, but Thune could do it.
There may be a way, Matt, but do you think he's going to?
No, he said he's not.
Exactly.
He said he's not.
There is nothing more important than the integrity of our elections. And these Republicans his quote was, the coin of the realm in the Senate is floor time, and we just don't have the time for this kind of thing. What the hell else do you have time for?
Insane stuff. I'll show you sometime.
This is it. You should be out of office if you don't think this is important. This is what we're fighting for. If we don't have safe elections, we don't have anything, and Trump of all people should know that.
Owen, where does Gen Z rank election integrity in the issue matrix? I hear from Gen Z probably more about affordability, more about immigration. Election integrity dips in just my anecdotal experience, but where do you see it?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I think that's probably because a lot of Gen Z didn't vote in 2020. Obviously, there was a handful of them that did, but they didn't like directly experience, I went and voted and then wait a second, why is there all this shady stuff happening, right? They saw the news coverage and things like that, and obviously they care about it. I care about it. It's huge. It's very important, and it really should be a bipartisan issue in this country, but it's unfortunately not. I mean, I think it comes down to the bread and butter issues, right? Like you said, like affordability, safety, clean streets, low crime.
But all of those hang on election integrity.
You are such a boomer. You're actually right, Pearson. I'm just messing with you, but like, no, but it's an important point that Owen's making. Like, it may be very foundational. I think it is, but it is a motivator. Typically for older voters. Younger voters are less concerned about election integrity generally than voters who are older. I just think it's interesting.
I mean, it's like saying, everybody's worried about their house being on fire, but they decide to get rid of the fire department. Like, you need the fire department to keep your house from burning down. You can't have that after the fact. When your house is on fire, then you can't decide to have the fire department. Like, you have to have safe elections and get the right people in these jobs, the people that we're voting for.
So let me put it to you then. What is Thune's motivation on this then? I'm telling you, he could do it. It's ostensibly that he doesn't want to violate Senate norms. They say that the House is like the cup of coffee that is hot and bubbly, and the Senate is the saucer that cools what spills over.
I just think he's a lousy, corrupt politician, and he doesn't care. I don't think he cares. I don't think any of them care. As long as they stay in office, they don't care at all. That's my opinion.
Well, maybe in South Dakota it's not as big an issue, but if they want to keep the leadership, if they want to keep control of these chambers, the midterms are going to be dicey.
I don't think they care about that either.
And those midterms are going to be a little dicier based on a Supreme Court decision we just got. We just get the Supreme Court decision upholding the big Gavin Newsom power play. So, I mean, it's going to happen that Gavin Newsom is going to steal 5 seats. The voters have approved it.
Yep.
The Supreme Court of the United States has approved it.
How did that happen?
How, Pearson?
How did that happen? Well, you tell me. I don't understand this stuff.
Well, I think the court says this is within the power of a state, and what we saw here was an exercise in political power. Because in Indiana and other red states where they could have redistricted and squeezed more Republican representation out, they didn't. They were too gentlemanly about that. Gavin Newsom.
That's why we're losing. That's why they're killing us.
But it's also
we're trying to play fair.
Frankly, let me put up a hypothesis, and Owen, you can agree with it or attack it. This is why Gavin Newsom is probably going to be the 2028 Democrat candidate for president, because he has shown how he can use power.
Get these things through.
In a world in which a lot of other Democrats look like they're just talking, Gavin Newsom went and stole power, and he got the theft approved
all these things
by the Supreme Court of the United States. Owen Girard.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what I personally get sick and tired of, right? Because Republicans will get elected. They'll win the Congress. They'll get the majority. They'll win the White House. They'll have power for 2 to 4 years, and they'll do virtually nothing that the base want. And then they scratch their heads and wonder why they were ousted, right? Like the next term. And they're like, well, we did what we were supposed to do. It's like, no, you did nothing. You held maybe a couple hearings, you came out with some strongly worded letters, and that was about it. And the Democratic Party knows, the real players, they know how to get things done for their base. And even if it's a lot of theatrics, even if it's really showy stuff and it doesn't even really matter in the end, they know how to capture the hearts and minds of Americans. They know how to use that emotional appeal. They know how to get to it. And then you have a case like Gavin Newsom, where absolutely Gavin is probably going to be the 2028 nominee for the Democrats because he gets things done. And, a lot of other Democratic governors are trying to take advantage of that. They're trying to show that they can get things done in their states, real executive power. And then what happens when our Congress is doing nothing? They're not codifying, Trump's executive orders into law, and they're standing still. And it's going to be a pretty lousy 2026 midterms. I think everybody can agree as of right now, unless the Republicans start actually connecting with the voters again and doing exactly what they did in 2024, which is, I hear your pain, I hear your struggle, I want to talk to each specific demographic group, the Gen Z, the elderly, the single moms, all that kind of stuff. I want to talk to you guys, and I want you to know that we are here for you and we're fighting for you, and this is exactly what we're going to do, and this is why you should reelect us. And they need to go and prove that to the voters that they can get the job done. And right now the Democrats are winning on that.
So I think you have two fundamentally different goals for Republicans in Congress and Republicans and Democrats. Democrats ideologically believe everything they're doing. They think it's critical that they pass these things, that they change the nature of our nation. They are in this to the end. Republicans, meanwhile, only want to look like they're doing something. They get in, and they want to be the minority party. Because when they're a majority, they don't act like it.
Let me push back on that.
They get in the minority, and then they make a big deal.
The immigration enforcement is happening. We have net negative migration, okay?
So the numbers say, but we have talked to a Border Patrol agent on our network who said there are places along the border where they are pouring through, and it's just nobody's covering it.
Wow. Well, we need to go to those places.
Well, we do. I agree. But I don't think that it's as low as they're touting. But anyway, Republicans don't want the power because when they're in the majority like they are now, they act like they're in the minority. We can't get anything done.
Do you give Gavin Newsom a tip of the hat for having done the thing?
Yeah. I don't think he deserves credit for it because I think he's put into this place where he can't fail. You can't really fail as a Democrat in California. They have the messaging locked in, and so anything he wants to pass, he can. And I wanted to bring up something else about the gas tax, the mileage tax. I think it was like 2018, they raised it, and it was $5 billion that they raised for improvements on our roads and infrastructure and stuff. And in the legislation, it said this cannot be used for anything except repairing our roads. The next year, Gavin used $2.5 billion on climate change activism. Like, the stuff they're taxing us for, they're not even using.
The climate
it.
here is perfect.
Yeah.
You know where they need climate change They need like climate change activism in the East Coast right now, where they would do anything for a little global warming. Because Zoran Mamdani can't clean up the snow.
No, but he's going to put a bunch of green heaters in all of our houses.
Oh dear. Owen, you talked about some of the specific appeals that have to be made to specific groups, and it got me thinking about some that we've seen recently. President Trump is talking a lot about housing now. We saw this statement that they really are going to go after the institutional buying of homes that has kept a lot of Gen Z out of home ownership. They talk about the cap on credit card fees at 10%. Walk me through how that's resonating. Do you think that folks believe that will lead to a brighter economic future for them?
I do, and I think a lot of Gen Z agree that these are awesome policies. It's just a matter of getting them done, right? And these are not crazy partisan issues, and that's the thing, And I mean, we can have awesome America First legislation that isn't, supposedly radically right wing or whatever that turns off a bunch of Democrats. We can get common sense legislation that is extremely America first, that does put our citizens first, that prioritizes their economic and social interests. And that's all they really want. Again, you talk to college students. I mean, college students, they love America. Many of them, fortunately,
they have credit card debt.
I've
never had more credit card debt than when I was in college.
And they just want affordability, right? They want that future. They want to live the American dream. And a lot of them, they may not love dealing with politics. Nobody really does, I don't think, at least normal people. And but they want a president who listens to them and who addresses their needs. And it goes to any age group, really, at the end of the day.
But they're going to reject whatever Trump says, even if he came out with a plan to give people free houses. I mean, President Trump can't get people to stop taking Tylenol when they're pregnant. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. If it comes from him, they reject it.
That to their own peril. But you were talking, Owen, about how these things don't have to be partisan. And there is one thing that the left made so partisan and President Trump has rescued on: crypto. For years, the radical left, the deep state hacks at the Security and Exchange Commission, they did everything they could to try to lock Gen Z and the rest of us out of the greatest wealth building machine in history. They wanted everyone dependent on the failing dollar while they print away the future, but those days are over. 11 months ago, President Trump signed the orders to end the loony left's war on crypto because he knows the secret the elites won't tell you. This is where wealth is built. The Genius Act is now law. America is officially the crypto capital of the world. It's why I don't just talk about it. I'm a client of Block Trust IRA. They are powered by the world's #1 Animus AI platform. It's the same elite technology once reserved for Wall Street hedge funds, now repurposed for patriots to build their retirement dreams. See what others are learning and know that just holding dollars, that's not going to work. This AI attacks. It turns market swings into massive gains. It's how Block Trust IRA has outperformed Bitcoin over 250% since 2020. This is American innovation for ordinary investors who want to win like the big guys. So don't let it pass you by. Go to mattcrypto.com right now, mattcrypto.com. Secure your future. Get up to $2,500 in funding as a Bitcoin bonus to jumpstart your account. President Trump paved the way. Block Trust IRA gives you the engine. Unlock your wealth today. mattcrypto.com. So Pearson, this concept of the houses and the 10% cap, do you view that as gaslighting, or do you think that's going to happen?
I think it's going to happen. Like I said, he's making tremendous strides bringing the economy back from the brink. I just don't know if enough people are going to feel it in time, before the midterms to make a difference. That's the big question.
Owen, what is the #1 thing out there right now bringing people to our side?
I mean, honestly, I would say it's the faith issue, to be completely honest. I mean, that is, again, like I said at the beginning of the show, that's the foundation, right? And that's, I think, what we need to be focusing on. And as the conservative...
Well, take that one. I buy that. I've heard the answer. I totally agree. I actually think that's a huge piece of the pie. But on policy, like, what are the policies you think, right? Is it the economic stuff? Is it the immigration stuff? Like, what if you're in a debate against a leftist in classic Charlie Kirk fashion, what's the ground you want to be defending right now that you think is our like best ground, our best growth space?
I think it is the economics. And I think the perfect example is looking at states, right? The laboratories of democracies, as they say, right? And, you look at red states. I mean, just look at the numbers. Obviously, I'm sure you guys have seen that are coming out, right? The electoral votes and how those are going to be shifting in 2030, the new congressional seats that will be added because of population shifts in different states, right? Utah's getting a seat, Idaho's getting a seat, Florida's getting like 2 seats probably, Texas is getting 3. And the states that are losing, California, New York, Michigan, and stuff like that, right? And that is a perfect example to show you that red state policies work, right? So the economics is a huge thing, right? Again, affordability, but also safe neighborhoods, clean communities, just basic aspects of the American dream, right? That's what the young people want. And then they look around, and I just think it's so funny, right? I'm debating these left-wing students on these college campuses in the South, right? And there's a lot of liberals even on these campuses in the Bible Belt. And I look around and I'm like, you're going to college in one of the reddest states in the country for a reason, because it's affordable, because you get a good quality education, and you're probably, I always usually ask them, like, what do you get majoring in? What do you want to do with your life, for a career and everything? And, usually they want to stay close to home. They want to build their lives in Florida, Alabama, Georgia, right? These states that are awesome for economic opportunity and awesome to build families and low taxes, things like that. So it definitely is the economics. And I think that is for pretty much all age groups.
I wanted to ask you, have you found free speech more welcome on college campuses after the tragic passing of Charlie Kirk?
It depends on the campus, right? So, unfortunately, we see a lot of our private conservative Christian schools here in the Bible Belt that are usually the most hostile towards a Turning Point USA chapter, unfortunately.
Why is that?
Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, they're a private school, right? So
it's like all the liberals in any red area congregate on college campuses sometimes because like they can't just wander about the rest of us. They feel like, we're unvaccinated and probably dangerous because we've owned a firearm or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the schools in your district, Matt, Pensacola Christian College, they just got recognition to put on events and table and do meetings and things like that, and they got like 70 people at their first general body meeting, which is huge. Like the average college, just regular public university is going to get like maybe 20 or 30 people at their first meeting, right? When they're just starting out. So, I mean, it's awesome to see that from the students, but the faculty and the admin, it can be tricky to work with them sometimes. So there was a funny time at Enterprise State Community College, actually, in Enterprise, Alabama.
Those are the fighting boll weevils of Enterprise State. If you didn't know that, Pearson, I did know that.
We love Enterprise, right? And so I go there, I set up a table. It's a public campus, right? I never usually have issues. And the dean of students or someone, I don't remember exactly, comes out and he says, "Oh, we're going to arrest you and everything for setting up your table in the public quad," right? And it's so funny because
I would not want to go to like the drunk tank of Enterprise, Alabama. That would not be a positive corrections experience. How did it end?
So I pull up on their website, they have a little thing that says, "This is our free speech zone on campus. It's our quad, right? And you can set up a table. You can do whatever you want. We recommend that you fill out this free speech form, but it's not a requirement." It says that very explicitly on the website. And I pull it up and I show it to the faculty, and I'm like, "Sir, this is your policy, right?" And he's like, "Oh no, that needs to be changed." And I'm like, "Okay, well, can I stay
until
on
it
campus?"
is? Yeah.
This is the policy, right? This is your current policy. It says I can be here, and he says, "Nope, you need to leave." So obviously, I respected that, and I left. I didn't need to be going to the correctional institute.
You didn't
that
behave
day.
like a leftist, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
So we obviously flyered campus, and we made sure that we were still able to make a good presence there. Whenever you can't have the table up, it's always a good time to go clipboarding at that point because they can't stop you when you're moving around, right? So you improvise, and anyway, it's funny because those really rural campuses, you'd think super conservative, everything's great. And then those are where the places you have the biggest issues. So it's
already
just
infiltrated
funny.
it.
Wow, that is wild. Well, Owen, if folks want to continue to follow your activism and your work, what are your coordinates on socials and online so people can stay in contact with you?
Yeah, you can follow me on X and on Instagram at Real Owen Gerard. I'm pretty much active on any social media, and you can also Google me anytime. I usually have articles or stuff that I'm writing or op-eds or things like that and doing stuff in the community. So yeah, I'm all around.
We love having you on One American News. We're glad there are great patriots out there really building that catchment apparatus for all of the enthusiasm President Trump creates, the MAGA movement, America First, Charlie Kirk. We've all got to be working together, and it's incredible to have you out there.
Yeah. Owen, thank you for what you're doing. God bless you.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, Pearson?
No, we'll be praying for you, and I really hope that more young people can come to your realization about what's going on, because that's what's going to change the tide of our nation.
Amen. Your comments on faith at the top of the show, certainly the most heartwarming. Stay safe out there on the campaign trail, Owen, and we'll check back in with you soon, my friend.
God bless. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and we will be back next week with another episode of Anchormen. Make sure to give us a 5-star rating, leave us a review, and let us know if there's anyone you'd like to have Pearson and I chat with. We always like to have interesting folks stop by. Thanks so much. We'll be back next week.
Want to see more great videos like this? Click on the link below to subscribe to OAN Live and watch Dan Ball's Real America and The Matt Gaetz Show on Dish Channel 212. Tune in, subscribe, and watch today.